I know I've had the pleasure of reading this book already, and I do think if anybody has purchased it tonight, you will not be disappointed. But what I would like to have her do is have her read a section of this book to you so you can kind of see just the beauty and tragedy that she's so amazingly woven together in a three-point perspective story.
Yeah, and it is, I'm going to read a little bit from each perspective character. We have one in her 30s, one in her late 50s, and one that's 12 and turns 13 in the book. So I'll read a part that has a little bit of each in it. We're going to start with Bethany's perspective. She is the main character in the book. She has the most pages. At home, Bethany sat at the desk in her room, video chatting with Carlos. He'd been sweet from the start. He smiled and leaned close to the camera. "You're so beautiful, baby." His clear eyes seemed to overflow with affection, and she felt a blush creep into her cheeks. "Thanks. I didn't know I missed you as much as I have." Bethany's mind raced over all the sneaky things she'd been doing since he left, and felt the color in her face deepen. A lump formed in her throat. "I know you missed me too. You don't have to say it. I can see it in your eyes." His lips turned up in a tranquil smile. "Always so sweet, loving. It's why I fell in love with you so fast." He chuckled. "No, I didn't stand a chance against those innocent eyes, delicate face. Can't wait to get home to you." Bethany swallowed hard. She was evil, pure evil. No one would ever love her as much as Carlos did. But he could get so mean and scary. Yeah, but he loved her. She didn't doubt that. Wasn't love enough? It was in the movies. But this wasn't a movie. This was her life. She blinked and a tear escaped, rolling down her cheek. "Ah, baby girl, don't cry. We'll be together soon. See, I knew you wanted me to come home early. You need me. A love like ours just shouldn't be apart like this." He propped his chin on his folded hands and gazed into the camera. More tears spilled. She did love him. This version. Love wasn't the issue. This was the man she married. Would he ever come back to stay? She wanted to tell him everything, explain why. She never wanted to hurt him. But Victor had been adamant, don't tell Carlos anything. Victor was sure Carlos would send someone to stop her from leaving if he knew. Victor said he'd tell Carlos his plan once his plane landed, before coming home to an empty house. Carlos leaned back with a smile. "Are you going to have the girls make a big welcome home banner and hang outside for when I get home? Knowing you, it's going to be amazing." The image he described was so far from what he was in store for, Bethany's stomach turned. She had to tell him. She couldn't let him think he was coming home to a happy family, eager to see him. She opened her mouth, but he didn't seem to notice. "Make sure Kenny's with you." One dark eyebrow arched high and seemed to pull a small smear from his lip on that side. It was gone as fast as it had shown up. "I know that kid might not agree, but I've only ever tried to prepare him for the real world. It's tough out here. One day he'll appreciate all I've done." Bethany nodded. Her confession died before it left her lips. "Okay, honey." He smiled. "Better have the girls start coloring on that banner soon. It's a big project." "Yes, it's a big project." He leaned to one side, reaching for something. When he straightened, he held a pack of cigarettes and pulled one from the carton. "I can't wait to see how it turns out. Going to smoke. Love you." He blew her a kiss before the chat screen went black. And then we're going to go to Stacy. Stacy's her mom. Stacy knew something was off as soon as Bethany came out of Jennifer's office. She was pale and distracted. She forced a smile for her girls when they greeted her, but immediately handed them snacks from her purse. "Eat as much as you want." Stacy pulled Bethany's elbow and led her outside. She shot Kenny a look and on her way out. "Keep an eye on him?" He nodded. "What's wrong?" Bethany's eyes filled with tears. "My phone's broke." "What?" Bethany nodded. "Yeah, I dropped it in the sink with water yesterday and broke it." "Okay. Want to get a new one before we go home?" "He's coming. Victor's been trying to call since yesterday, but I didn't know." Stacy's heart thumped against her eardrums. "Why has he been calling?" "Carlos is flying out tomorrow. He's coming." Stacy grabbed Bethany's arms and gave them a little shake. "Carlos is coming tomorrow? Are you sure?" Bethany nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Jennifer said Carlos called and wants to know why we're still here." She shook her head. "We have to go. We have to go." Bethany's hands waved, and she looked like a cornered rabbit ready to run, but not sure which direction. Stacy nodded as she gulped in shallow breaths, trying to get more oxygen to her fuzzy brain. "What time will we be home? We should go tonight." Bethany shook her head. "No, Mom, he's leaving tomorrow. Supposed to stop overnight here sometime Saturday. Unless he doesn't spend the night, then late tomorrow, but probably Saturday. At least that's what Victor told Jennifer. Stacy shook her head and closed her eyes. Still, she had to think. Jennifer wants me to come back in the morning. She's going to take me down to the emergency relief office. She's doing the paperwork. For what? What does that mean? They'll pay for our plane tickets, me and the kids, wherever we want to go. Texas. Bethany nodded. Yeah. What will I tell the girls? Stacy wrapped her arms around her daughter. She couldn't tell if the shaking was coming from Bethany's body or her own. I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know. And then Felicia. And Felicia is Bethany's niece. The house was perfect. Felicia hoped Kenny and Aunt Bethy loved it as much as she did. They picked up the keys and spent at least a half hour walking through every room and talking about what it might be like to live with Aunt Bethy's family. They'd imagined who would occupy each room. Her mom shared decorating ideas that sounded perfect to Felicia. Now Felicia was ready for her stuff. She convinced her mom to go to their old house and get as much as possible in one trip. One of Mom's friends said she thought Danny was still locked up, but another said she thought she saw him in a bar playing pool the night before. Mom decided to drive by the house and check it out. Danny's truck wasn't there, and the potted plants on the front porch were dried up and looked dead. Looks like he hasn't been here since we left. Mom backed into the driveway and popped the trunk. This place gives me the creeps. Let's just hurry. On the porch, Mom lifted a stiff vine with a frown. A dead flower broke off and dropped to her feet. She sighed. Wonder if we should take these with us and try to revive them. Felicia rolled her eyes. Sure, Mom. But can you unlock the door? I want to get my stuff. Sorry. Her mom opened the door and peeked inside before crossing the threshold. The blinds were shut. It took a minute for their eyes to adjust. Just leave the door open. It'd be easier to load the car, and it stinks in here. Sure did. Old food, stale cigarettes, maybe something else. Gross. Her mom hurried to the kitchen. I should take out the trash. Freaks. Felicia followed her. Whatever. We don't live here anymore anyway. As Felicia said it, she found herself smiling. They didn't live there. It wasn't home. Giddy vibrations filled her belly. Best birthday ever. Mom opened the cupboard under the sink, grabbed a roll of trash bags, pulled 3 off, and handed them to Felicia. Put your stuff in these. Try to hurry. I just want to get out of here. She rushed to her room. No, the room that used to be hers. Not anymore. Her door was wide open. For a second, she saw Danny smashing her behind that door. Her heart beat a little faster. She shook her head and pressed her lips together. No more. Felicia sailed through the doorway and tossed 2 trash bags at the bed. They didn't quite make it and fell to the floor instead. She rolled her eyes and shook open the one in her hand. She started with her clothes, scooping them up and shoving them in the bag. She missed some of these. Happy birthday to me. She wasn't sure how to pack a few pieces of jewelry or pretty figurines Granny had given her. She looked around and then smacked her forehead. Digging around in her bag of clothes, she found a few soft t-shirts. She carefully wrapped each item in a shirt before placing them in a second bag. Felicia didn't want to forget a couple of treasures she'd stored under the bed. As she crawled under, she giggled. Buried treasure. This is like an adventure. She grabbed a small stack of notebooks and pushed them out. When she reached for an old stuffed animal, she heard it. No way. But she knew that sound. Danny's truck, still running in the driveway, just outside the window. She rushed to get out from under the bed, but didn't clear it before trying to get up, slamming the back of her head against the frame. Pain shot through her skull and made her blink a couple times before she slid out a few more inches and jumped to her feet. The engine shut off. One glance out the window showed Danny sitting in his truck, staring at their car in the driveway with a sneer on his ugly face. Mom! Danny's here! She tripped over the bag of clothes and sprawled on the other side of it. As she bounced to her feet, Mom rushed in and put a hand out, motioning for Felicia to stop. Stay in the room. Felicia was wild and shook her head, trying to get past. We have to get out of here! Her mom grabbed her shoulders and forced her to make eye contact. It's okay. I won't let anything else happen to you. Stay in the room.
Wow. That was great. That is awesome. I think one thing that I think this is to learn what is your writing process like? What was your spark? Was it a little bit more organized? You really focused on the plot, or was it a little bit more organic? What was your thought process behind it?
Yeah, I was really organized with it, and first it was just Bethany's story. I had most of Bethany's story written, but there were so many things that I learned, and I felt like I needed a more wise and experienced character. And I knew that Stacy was going to have some of that wisdom. So, and the only way to really bring that out without a lot of telling was to give her a perspective. So I gave Stacey a perspective, and she became another point of view character. And then I was like, well, there's so much going on with Felicia, and like, I need to write that in. I remember what it was like growing up with that stuff, and so Felicia ended up becoming a point of view. And once I did that, I was like, oh no, now how do I stay organized with this? Because I wanted it to flow, because it goes, every chapter is a day. So whatever happens that day, it may have more of Bethany or more of Felicia, it depends on what's happening that day. And so to keep it all organized, I ended up buying 3 different colors of big Post-it notes. And each character had their own color, and on the back of my office door, I put each one so I could make sure that I could see by the color that they're evenly sprinkled a little bit, and I was really, really, really organized with it.
Because each of those characters have a perspective from a different point of life. The mother, the matron who has understood this world, she comes from this world, she's trying to break this cycle, and then you have the one daughter currently living in it, and then you have Felicia's perspective. Which one of the 3 perspectives do you think you most identify with?
That's a good question.
Because they're all 3 so interesting. They come from the perspective of life, from the teenage point of view, the sassy. And if you flip through the book, if you have it, you have the sassy sullen teenager who's angry about mom's choices, and then you've got the wise mom who's biting her tongue, not sure what to say, and then you have Bethany, who does have most pages in this book. But the tidbits you give us with Stacey and Felicia are just as telling.
Yeah, because I feel like I put a little bit of me in all of them. So the things I learned, I put into Stacey. The things that I remember, ways that I felt going through my own process of getting free, a lot of that went into Bethany. And then Felicia, I remember what it was like growing up, and like she mentions, being smashed behind the door, like that happened to me with my dad. And so some of these things I was able to remember how certain things felt. And so there's a little bit of me in all of it. But I think that's the way most writers are, right? You write what you know or what you can research and learn. And there was a lot of research that went into this book also. And I also became a domestic violence advocate and got that whole perspective too. So it's not just me either. This is like a story of millions of women out there. And so it's not just my story, this is a story you can hear anywhere because so many women are affected. And even not just women, men can experience it too because there are abusive women. So it can happen to anybody.
So you talked about how you're connected to all 3 characters in the novels. Was that the first goal with the first rough draft, or did it change at all until the final product was released?
You mean, does the story change?
Yeah, did the story change at all?
Oh, the story changed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been working on this story for a really long time. And then it was pretty much done before last school year, but then I was teaching, and I was teaching a lot of different subjects, and I was really busy, and so I didn't do anything with it the whole school year. But I'm really glad that I did that, because being a teacher, it just, when I went back to it this last summer and did my editing, I changed quite a bit to be with my students in mind. Because I thought, what if my students read it the way that it was? There were some things I just needed to maybe clean up a little bit, or bring out a little bit more. And so it changed quite a bit from the very beginning, and then every time I edited it.
I think it's important that you bring that up, like maybe you cleaned up some sections considering the audience who might read it. But you don't sugarcoat stuff in this book either. And so what perspectives or beliefs have challenged you with doing this? Because it's one thing to set out and think, okay, you know what, this is the road we're going to go, and then you look at the face of a 16-year-old girl in the front row of your class, and you're like, you know what, Like, how do you go from A to B?
That's a really good question. I honestly don't know if I have a good answer to that question because some of it I just have to follow my heart, you know, and depending on what it is, which scene it is that I'm writing, what needs to be said, what's essential. There are some things that I couldn't take out. And the very first person I ever had read the whole thing, it was still a rough draft, she told me there was one scene that she couldn't really read, and she pretty much skipped it. And that spoke to me too, because I felt like it was an important scene, but it did make me take another look at it and see how can I maybe condense it or make it a little bit easier to read without losing the point.
Was that the hardest scene then to write?
No, the ending was the hardest. Oh, it's so hard to write the ending. It took me forever.
Because you're coming up with 3 endings that they circle back into one.
Yeah, and this is the first of 3 books, because at first I was going to try to cram it all into one book, but then there was no, once I started putting this post-it notes up, I'm like, there is no way this is going to one book. I'm going to have like, you know, the Gone with the Wind or something size book. So I didn't want that, so I needed to split it up.
So you said the ending of the novel was the hardest to write, and the ending of the novel is kind of like the conclusion of the essay. What is your call to action? So if everybody left here today, what do you want them to leave with?
There's more than one thing, I guess, but really, I really want you to read the book because it shares so many different things, whether it's somebody going through it, currently working their way through it. There's hope, you know, and sometimes people don't even realize what it is that they're in. Like, this doesn't feel right. I don't like how this is going, and I'm crying every single day, but why? You know, I'm like, if it's them. And so to kind of shine a light on that, for that person, that there's hope, and there are resources. There are so many resources. That's a big one. As I went through it, there's a lot out there, and so for people to know that, and then for people who know people, I know I've heard people say that they have family member or friends that are going through it. They know they're going through it, and they're so irritated because this person just keeps going back, or why doesn't she just leave? And they're like, I'm done with it. I'm done. Like, whatever. If you want to be in that, then fine, you be in that. And they're just hands off, and that's so heartbreaking because you don't know when it's time, you know. And so if you're that person, if you're the person who knows somebody, don't give up on them. Just keep loving them through it. They're in a tough spot, and they have really huge, life-changing decisions to make, and that is not an easy decision, especially if they've made a marriage commitment, especially if they have kids with this person. Don't throw in the towel on them. Just love them through it. And then, like churches, oh my goodness, I've seen churches handle it so badly. Like, oh, you need to stay because you made this marriage vow and God hates divorce. Yes, God hates divorce, but He hates abuse too. But then I've seen churches handle it super good. Like, they're just coming behind and they're helping both people because most people don't want to be abusive, right? And so if there's a chance that they can help the person who's mistreating somebody else and open their eyes to it, then good. That's awesome. If they can help the person that's going through it, you know? And so just either way, there's just so many different things, and I really tried to bring those things to life in the story.
Well, and I think that's the part, like when I spoke with you before, it's your heart behind this book. It's not just to talk about domestic violence, it's to teach.
Yeah.
And the powerful story of 3 perspectives. I mean, you can hear your heart in it when you talk about it. You can hear the anger. Like Felicia Reed's angry. She's an angry teenager. Why am I in this situation? Why can't you fix this, right? You have problems with your teenage daughter about clothes, let alone let's talk about this. And then you have the mom who wants to help but can't. to play this Kahoot game and see the staggering statistics of the number of people that are affected by this, even if we are so blessed to never have firsthand knowledge of this situation, the reality is somebody we know in our short proximity knows exactly what this feels like. And I think that's why this book has power. Like you said, it's not just nonfiction where the person, if I'm going to teach kids about squirrels, we're going to go find a book about squirrels. But if I want to teach about domestic violence, okay, fine, I'll go find a book. But I'm looking for it. The people I firmly believe will be blessed by this book are the people who read it, who can help others. Or the one who's being abused can honestly realize that there are the resources out there. There's so many things they don't pursue straight up out of fear of whoever is their abuser, male or female or reverse, it doesn't matter. And I think the 3 perspectives truly walk the line of anger, what do I do, to wisdom. And I think if you hadn't had all 3 characters in that book, it would have read very shallow. And it doesn't. Like when I finished this book, I called her, I finished like 2 days, I was like, oh my word, I was until 3 o'clock in the morning reading it for the one fact, to finish it to the end and have it circle back. That's where the message is. We can't give away too much of the ending of this book, but the heart of teaching, what do you do if you're in that situation? What does God say? More importantly, what do I do if it's somebody I know and love? Because that's just for sure. Somebody in our lifetime will cross our paths, and they will be a Felicia, a Stacy, or a Bethany.
And so, like, I made the website DauntedNoMore.com, and there's a resource page on it. So I guess that's another thing I would want people to know. I did a lot of research and found a lot of resources that I put on the resource page. Because even, like, I spent time overseas. I lived in Australia for a few years, and just feeling like you're so isolated sometimes when you're not around in the military. Oh my goodness, all the military spouses who experience it because they're now isolated away from their families, they're moving around, they don't feel like they know anybody. And that's one of the things that is pretty common, whether it's military or not, is to kind of isolate the family and cut off their support system. And so there are resources, there's even website and phone numbers to call if you're like an American overseas and things like that. So all of that I put in this resource page. And with books, there's a lot of nonfiction books that really help. And as a matter of fact, one of the prizes, oh, I'm not doing any prizes. One of the prizes that I got, because I feel like it's so important, is this book called The Gift of Fear. And so that is one of the prizes that we'll have to do a drawing in a minute and give away some of those, because I think everybody should read it. It's a real eye-opener that fear can be a gift, but you have to recognize it for what it is and listen to it right. So that's great.
Well, as we transition to giving away a gift, we kind of want to throw it out to the floor. Are there any questions that you have for Susanna?
And I'll walk around and we'll need CPL. I will exit the stage right real quick.
Okay, and while he transitions, so get your ticket out, and if you have corrections, anyone?
Yeah, Jackie.
Okay. Did we just have a first drawing?
I promise.
First drawing, Jackie.
So Jackie is our first winner tonight. Congratulations.
There's 3 options for prizes. You can either get the Daunted No More journal, or you can get the Gift of Fear, or you can get a bubbly bath bomb.
Okay, that bomb it is. Congratulations. Okay, we'll go here, we'll go here. Okay, here we go.
I was just wondering, do you think that after reading this book it would inspire people who are in this situation to get help? I mean, do you think it's pretty helpful? So, okay.
I hope so, but safely. So that's the thing, is I think that it has the potential to inspire someone to get help, but it also shines a light on the safety issue, because getting out is the most dangerous time. You can be in the relationship, you can be there for years, and it's not fun, and it's dangerous, don't get me wrong, but the moment that somebody decides to leave, and that first skill, really. So it has to be done right. And that's something else I really emphasize, because people are like, well, she should just get out. She shouldn't just get up and run, because there's more to it than that.
Okay, we have a question right over here.
You mentioned a sequel. What does that look like? Your plans for that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's hard to talk about because of I don't want to give away the ending. But yeah, there are 2 more books. The second one kind of helps wrap up a lot of what's going on with Bethany in her life. And the third one is going to focus a lot on Felicia. She will probably become the star of the third book, because teen dating violence is huge. It's a huge issue. It's not getting any better. And it's really scary, the statistics on teen dating violence. So I want to bring that to light in the third book.
Okay, any other questions? Question right here.
So has your writing been therapeutic for you?
Well, I would say the most therapeutic part of my writing were all of the journals that I filled up before I ever even thought of writing a book. So writing is definitely therapeutic, but I wouldn't recommend using a book you plan to publish as part of that therapeutic process. Who knows what will come out, but definitely write it all out. It does help to have it all out, but then if you want to write a book to share with other people, you might want to change some things.
Okay, we have a question over here.
Thanks. So you mentioned during last school year you didn't even look at your book, but how long would you say that took you to write like that first part?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say it was probably close to 2 years to write it. Because there was just, especially when I did Bethany, and I was like, oh wait, now I really need to add Stacy. And then I had to go back and plug Felicia in all the right spots. And so it was quite a process. Yeah, it took a couple of years. And I remember, like, I got these Writer's Digest magazines, right, and I'm reading them, and I'm like, they have all these interviews from first-time authors, and they're like, oh, how long did it take you to write your book? 2 years. I remember thinking, 2 years? Are you kidding me? There's no way I want to take 2 years to write a book. Yeah, okay, well. Yeah.
And what advice would you give to any first-time authors?
Keep writing. Keep writing. Because it can get discouraging sometimes, is this thing ever going to be done? But just keep writing.
Are you going to do electronic publishing?
You mean, is there an ebook
Yeah.
available? Yeah. It's available, ebook, paperback, and hardcover.
Awesome. Anybody else have any questions? Let's check the Facebook land. Land of Facebook. It looks like we do have a question on Facebook. Okay, this is from Bobby. I would like to know how long it took you to write this book, and is this specific topic what got you into writing? I love your style, by the way. Smiley face.
Okay, so we talked about how long it took, and what was the second part of that?
And was this was this your specific topic, your first kind of exigence? Was this your first spark into writing?
Yeah. Well, I would have to say yes, although I've always loved writing. Like, even, I don't know, a couple of decades ago, I thought about writing. And then before I got my psychology degree, I actually looked at writing degrees first. I was like, I like writing so much. But then, don't let people discourage you from what you love doing. Because then I got asked, well, what would you ever do with a writing degree? So I was like, oh, maybe I'll get a psychology degree instead.
Perfect. And it looks like we have a question right here.
I'm not even sure how to articulate this. What was your process like working through the emotions to get it out of paper?
You're making me cry. Yeah, it wasn't easy. I can't even tell you how many tears fell as I wrote this book. So, yeah, it wasn't an easy story to write by any means, but I felt like it was important to write, so I just kept going.
Okay, any other questions? Do we have anything else on Facebook? I can't, oh, this is from Katie. I can't wait to read it. What part of the book was the most fun to write? We talked about how one of the chapters that was hardest to you, but what was one of the most more positive?
Yeah, I really enjoyed writing in a lot of the interactions between like the sisters and the kids, and some of those made me laugh. You know, like I was really into the story, so like I'm laughing as I'm writing from parts and reading them, and so probably a lot of those interactions, like sister interactions are, you know, they're fun. There's a ton of laughing. And then your kids, man, they do some crazy stuff sometimes that just make you go, what? And laugh. So those kinds of scenes, those are really fun to write. So it's not like all tears. This book, I really didn't want it to be so heavy that it's hard to get through. I definitely sprinkled fun stuff in there, real life stuff that's just family fun kind of stuff.
Okay, looks like we have one more. Okay, from Mark, have you started this? Ooh, I like this question. I'm a movie guy. I had a feeling this was going to happen. Have you started the screenplay adaptation yet? You know I had to ask that.
Yes, I know you did, Mark. Okay, so that's so funny because the very first scene that I wrote of this story was for film. And then I was like, well, maybe I should do the book first. So I haven't started this screenplay, but yeah, that's coming.
So exciting. I do have one more question. Looking at the cover of the book, what kind of inspired the picture behind it?
I love the fact that I actually had some say in the cover, because sometimes you don't when you publish a book. But I did get some say in it, and so I was really excited about that. Well, I wanted it, there's so many different cover options, but I wanted it to show hope. So it's a woman and her kids, and it looks like they're going hopefully to freedom. But I also didn't want to leave out the fact that it's dangerous, and there is this element of suspense or thriller kind of thing in it, and so I was happy that they could include a very faint picture of that. So it's not the most prominent thing on the cover, but I wanted it to be there more subtly, because the most prominent thing, the most prominent message, I really want people to get is hope.
Is there any final questions you would like to ask Susanna about the novel, maybe about her writing? Maybe there's another book that she's maybe kind of thinking about besides this one. Is there any other questions?
I want to hear if there's a different kind of book.
Is there, have you thought about it? I don't know, you've been so busy.
I love writing. I plan to write for the rest of my life, so yeah, there's more books, for sure.
Are you going to share the topic?
Well, you know, I did actually start this, and I developed the characters for it and everything when my daughter was super into drawing stories. So, I mean, it's more geared for a younger crowd, but and deals with the topic of bullying and stuff like that. But yeah.
Hey, that sounds exciting. I love dragons.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
First, I want to say thank you for everyone coming tonight, coming out, taking time out of your busy schedules, especially during these kind of unprecedented times with COVID-19. So thank you so much for coming out tonight and supporting our good friend Susanna and the release of her book.
Well, we just want to thank you for taking time out of your night to come support Susanna. Can we just give a round of applause?
Facebook. I love you guys, and
closing tag, where can you get the book? Just a reminder, where can we purchase the novel?
I think it's available all over the place. By Amazon is a great place to find it. You can get any of the versions on Amazon. And,
We're on the table on the way out the door.
yeah, it's somewhere back there. So, any of those places.
Thank you for taking your time and for shedding so much light on a topic that is traditionally so taboo.